Howdy, everybody. It's Sam. I hope you're doing really well. If you're new around here, I hope I can get you to consider liking the content and subscribing to the channel. And if you are a regular around these here parts, thank you so much for the continuous support. We are less than 30 days away now from the kickoff to the NRL 2022 season. And I thought it would be fun to go back in time, as it were, and check out and talk about North Queensland's biggest, best rivals, and even some of the coldest rivalries that they've had throughout their 20 plus year history. I don't count, and no one should. No one, I don't count all these teams as rivalries. There's only really one or two that you really should count if you're following rugby league. And also, I don't speak on behalf of all of North Queensland. This is a list that's been formed by me. It's just my opinion. And I'm going to go through every single club and rank them in order. And what I did last year, and I'll just bring up an overlay, guys. Last year, I asked the question to the Cowboys social media page. Howdy, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. I'd like to ask a question. Which team in the NRL would you identify as the club who Cowboys have the least amount of heat or rivalry against? And the response was big, and it was fairly mixed as well. And I'd say out of all of the answers that I'd got, I think the top two for the least heated rivalry between the two sides is the Gold Coast Titans and the Melbourne Storm. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to the people of the Cowboys forum there on Facebook that answered my question and gave some answers. And they all came back and said Melbourne Storm and Gold Coast Titans are probably the two sides that probably don't do anything for anybody if you're a North Queensland Cowboys fan. And just before I go on, I just want to go into the chat. G'day, CJ. How you going, man? Thanks for joining me once more. Jason Reader, you're an avid watcher. Thank you so much as well. CJ, you're off to the All-Stars this weekend, mate. How freaking good are you sitting with the Indigenous fans, or you're sitting on the bloody halfway line sort of thing? Let us know, bro. And Miss Jacqueline Dixon, hello. Thank you very much. I've seen you around these parts before. Thank you for your continuous support. Jay Lockyer, thank you very much. You've been a supporter as well. And so you're from Innisfail, Miss Dixon. Nice to talk to you online. Thank you. And oh, dude, I just saw it. You're just going to be sitting with the Indigenous fans. That's sick, dude. That's sick. I'm so excited for you. And yeah, this is all in anticipation and excitement for the upcoming season. And oh, look, it's my mum. Hey, mum, how you going? Hey, so without further ado, let's get stuck into it. So this is my list, and we're going to start right at the bottom. This is the team that I think there's just never been anything between the two sides, and not just because it's close, not because it's ever been close, but there's just no heat, absolutely nothing. I'd say that this team is probably the coldest when we come up against one another, and I'm going to start off with the New Zealand Warriors. I think the heat between the Cowboys and Warriors is non-existent. There have been a couple of good games over the past few seasons, in particular the one from last year from Indigenous round. But besides that game, you wouldn't say there's really ever been anything. Admittedly, though, I just want to rattle off a few facts to you guys. In the year 2000, in round 11, it took that long until it was the first match that was decided by 6 points or less. So the meaning behind that fact is it took until that match for it to be a close game or a thriller. So for 5 years there, it was just a bloodbath either way sort of thing, and one that was never really interesting. And the next stat I'd like to rattle off to you, 2004, it's the only Golden Point game that's ever been played between these two sides. That took place at Mount Smart Stadium, and it was Josh Hannay that sunk them 28 points to 26 with a penalty goal in Golden Point extra time. And just one more, they have played a semi-final, and that was on a famous Sunday afternoon up in Townsville in 2007. And yes, some people would say, oh, they've played a finals game against one another. Surely that must count for something. Nah, man. I mean, it was North Queensland that ended up belting them 49 points to 12, I think it was, off the top of my head. Correct me in the chat if I'm wrong on that. But as far as other historic stat goes, and if you guys excuse me, I've got me trusty journal here. You've got a 2005 game that was played out there at Mount Smart Stadium. You had a contest in 2013 on round 4, and Easter Monday, a rare Monday night game, probably only the first or second time that's ever happened out there at Auckland. And that was a win to the Warriors as well. And just there's nothing, again, I keep saying it, there's nothing ever really between the two sides that could say, oh, I can't wait till they meet up next time, until last season, of course, with that Indigenous game. So far as rivals go and all of that, right at the bottom of the list is the New Zealand Warriors. There's just never been anything there. So I just want to move on to the next one now, guys. And just before I do, I want to say hello and a quick cheerio to Mr. Nick from Australia. Hey, man, thank you very much for joining me, bro. And it's Bosky, as always, man. Thank you so much for joining in. And Jimmy Miller's just rocked up. Hey, dude. Hey, bro. And what do we got here? We've got CJ, Cowboys versus South 2008 and 2018 game made a tiny rivalry. And we'll get to South Sydney, obviously, throughout this talk here. And so number 14 on my list for coldest enemies, as it were. I'm going to have to agree with the Cowboys forum here and say that it's got to be the Gold Coast Titans. This is definitely probably it's not a derby. It's not a heated Queensland derby as some of the commentators out there would want you to believe. They're trying to make out to believe. So I'll just go into the following stats. So the head-to-head record reads at 16-11. So it's a rare achievement that the Cowboys have the wood over one side. But the Gold Coast Titans have won 3 odd games in a row against us over the past couple of seasons. And their first encounter took place at Carrara Stadium on a Monday night. And in that game, Carl Webb got the shits. I forget who he took on, but he bopped someone in the face to say that, no, you are the little brother compared to us. I do remember that. And they played the first ever game at Seabus Super Stadium on a Friday night. And that was a dreadful old bloody night too. I think Jordan Aikens on debut scored 4 tries against us. And Jonathan Thurston played his last ever game in the NRL on the Gold Coast in 2018, obviously. So I think those are reasons as to why I think they are above the Warriors as far as heat goes between the two sides. But besides that, I mean, you look through the history. There was a game there where in round 1, 2012, the Gold Coast Titans beat North Queensland up in Townsville 18-0. That was a bastard of a friggin' result too, just quietly. And there was a game in 2017, and that's about it. There's never really been a cool standout game of rugby league that's featured between these two sides. And again, no matter what the media wants you to try and accept and believe, it's not a fierce, hot feeling derby, to be honest with you guys. And I mean, the forum, the Cowboys forum as well, would indicate so as well. So yeah, I'd have Gold Coast Titans as my second cold, or my second most coldest of enemies. And so I'll just move on to the next one now. And CJ Moxley, bro, if you're still in the chat, there they are at number 13, the South Sydney Rabbitohs. The overall record stands for South Sydney 20-17, and you throw in a draw that happened in 2004, and between the mid-2000s, North Queensland actually took the lead in the wins between the two sides, but their first ever win against South Sydney wouldn't come until 2002 when they pipped them at the old SFS in the final round of 2002. And just for heat as well. The 3 of the first 4 encounters were decided by 6 points or less. So there is a bit of a, I don't know, just a positive, friendly little feud that goes on between Cowboys and South Sydney. And as CJ said, in 2004 and no, wait a minute, let me go back. There were 2 Sunday games back to back on a Channel 9 Sunday games. I don't know if you guys remember it, but they were 2 classic Sunday Arvo games, and they were always hugely anticipated. And with a stat here, the South Sydney Rabbitohs in 1996, they travelled to Townsville for the first time ever, and for 2 years it was the attendance record. It stood at 27,500 people, and it always is a big occasion when South Sydney travel to Townsville. I mean, there's South Sydney fans all over the joint, right? Compared to when Cowboys travel down to Sydney. You're lucky to get friggin' 3,000 people there in attendance. But when South Sydney travel to Townsville and when they play games up in Cairns like they have over the past couple of years, in recent seasons, I should say, it always draws a big crowd. And I think it's definitely a game to look forward to more than the Warriors or the Gold Coast Titans, as it were. And just to show you a little bit of pepper that's happened between these two sides, I want to play you guys a video. And this happened in 2003 in a game where North Queensland beat them 60 points to 8 off the top of my head. I think at the time it was the biggest win in North Queensland's history. And 3, 2, 1.
Inside the 20, the Cowboys once again dominating the game so far. Hannay, Morrison, Simpson's come in.
Easy. Glenn. Back away. Your bloke's back there. Your bloke's back there.
Go on, get into him. Go on, get him. I'm so excited to see some Biff. I hope there's some Biff happening later this season when we all kick off. So yeah, that's just a little snippet there, and another reason why I think it's not at the bottom of the list. It usually draws a big crowd whenever South Sydney do travel up to Townsville. And so for me, South Sydney sit at number 13 on the list. And let's move on to the next one. And at number 12, the Penrith Panthers. This is an intriguing one. So the overall record between these two sides, head-to-head, 23-19. So it's close, but the Panthers do have the better record overall against us. They played the second ever Golden Point game, which is pretty cool. And they've played 3 Golden Point games in total overall. The biggest comeback in NRL history, which still remains today, happened in round 12 of 1998. North Queensland came back from 26-0 down at halftime, and they went on to win 36 points to 28. And there's a game that happened in 2018 where the Cowboys came off a flogging from Penrith, and then only about a month later, they travelled down to Bathurst for the first time. And that turned out to be one of the better games of 2018 and arguably maybe the best win of the Cowboys season that year, besides the retirement for Jonathan Thurston and Parramatta. And it was a spicy old game. It's just that it seems from the early 2000s until maybe about 2017, the Cowboys and Panthers seem to play close games, and there's always not always, but there's a fair bit of feeling whenever these two sides meet. I wish I could play us some footage that's happened, but I just don't want to get flagged by the NRL and get copyrighted for it. Yeah, I would personally have Panthers over South Sydney, Titans and Warriors. Whenever these two sides meet, I think it's usually close. I know Panthers have had our number over the past couple of seasons, but I'd probably have Panthers in at number 12. And I'll just quickly deep dive back into the chat if I may, guys. Hey, so we've got Warriors NRL Fanatics that's just joined us. Hey, dude, thank you for joining me, man. And Jacqueline Dixon, Cowboys trial match. And please stay tuned, Miss Dixon. There will be a video on my channel featuring that trial, talking about that trial for sure. And Jacqueline Dixon again. And yeah, it was a great comeback, CJ, when it featured Penrith Panthers and North Queensland Cowboys for sure, man. And if you don't mind, I just need to go down into my video section and check things out. All right, so I missed a video and I want to show you just something. I want you to listen to this slap that happens. I should have shown this before when I was talking about the Gold Coast Titans. Just listen to this and look at James Tamau. 3, 2, 1.
Here's Minicello. And it looks as though the Titans are destined to finish Scotty Prince's 100th game with the Gold Coast as a losing outfit tonight. We're going to have a...
Did you guys hear that? Did you guys see that? I need to play it again.
Here's Minicello. And it looks as though the Titans are destined to finish Scotty Prince's 100th game with the Gold Coast as a losing outfit tonight. We're going to have a bit of a stink, though, before we're done.
If I got slapped like that, I'd be put into a coma for a fortnight. But Mr. Mark Minicello got up straight away and wanted to box on with James Tamau. I should have shown that when I was talking about the Titans. But I saw that video for the first time in, a decade, literally today. I totally forgot all about it, eh? Oh, man. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. And coming in at number 11 is the St. George Illawarra Dragons. The St. George Illawarra North Queensland's first ever win came against the Illawarra Steelers in Wollongong in 1995, obviously. And in 1996, North Queensland's first ever win in Sydney came against the Dragons. So I know Steelers is a completely different thing, and some would even argue that the St. George Dragons as well, back in the mid-90s, is something that you probably shouldn't put in the same conversation today, seeing as the two clubs have merged. But every time the Cowboys go to Wollongong, it's usually close. There has been a blowout here or there throughout their 25-plus year history. But they have a decent record. As a matter of fact, from 2014 to 2017, they won 3 in a row down there at Wollongong. So they have a decent record, and we usually tend to get up for the Dragons as well, man. And here's another rare one for us, guys. The head-to-head record between the two sides since the Dragons and the Steelers merged is 18-17 in favor of North Queensland. And that's rare, man. So we've got a lead over the Titans, and we've got the Wood by 1 victory over the St. George Illawarra Dragons. And I want to play you guys just a bit of a rough old video. Bear with it. It goes for about a minute. So this happened in 2012. The first game happening up in Townsville, and later on that season, as you'll see, the residue of that heated encounter would come to the boil later on in that season in 2012. Here you go.
Steve's got a little restless.
And now Tarmo gets in the face of Matty Pryor.
Then Matt Pryor lost his head trying to take off Jonathan Thurston's.
Here it is from hang on a second. Well, that's a send-off. Matt Pryor, the elbow, the forearm has come up and collected Jonathan Thurston.
A vicious forearm to the head of the Cowboys captain. Pryor was sent off.
I think it's best if they...
That's old-fashioned, isn't it? The old... See, that's the wrestling coaches coming into it too much there. Just that's big time I would have given, but this is wrong from Vito coming in there, like when someone's down. He sort of instigated, made it spark a little bit more. Like there's no need, like for him to punch someone when you can't even see his face or his shoulders. You hit him in the ribs.
How's Vito there showing us some early WWE wrestling and some punches coming in from the side there. So there was a bit of feeling in 2012. I'm not insinuating for a second that that would be the start of a fierce, great rivalry. Not at all. However, over the past 10 or 12 years now, the St. George Illawarra Dragons and North Queensland Cowboys, on an average, their games are close. I'd say 7 points on average is usually the finishing margin whenever these two sides meet. And I also want to throw in this narrative as well. It was 2017 that North Queensland had to rely on the Dragons losing to the Bulldogs in that final round. And they did, man. And I know a Dragons fan that you guys don't know. And he says, man, I just wonder what we could have done instead if we had pipped the Bulldogs instead of allowing you blokes to come in. So I know that the South Sydney Rabbitohs get a bigger crowd whenever they travel to Townsville. I know that Penrith Panthers, we've played some Golden Point games and there's been some pepper, but I just think that the games between Cowboys and Dragons, especially what we did last year twice against them, I just think that the matchup between the Dragons and the Cowboys is something that's a lot better than the aforementioned teams as well. And I want to move on to, and just quickly as well, guys, just their first ever win in Sydney came against the St. George Dragons back in '96. So they broke the duck, as it were, against the Dragons. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. At number 10, the Canberra Raiders. The Canberra Raiders and Cowboys, yeah, I might be a little biased because I live in Canberra, but the Raiders and Cowboys have played some outstanding matches over the years, and the head-to-head record stands at 20-25 in favor of the Canberra Raiders. The game in 2017 in round one, where Cowboys won in Golden Point extra time, was fierce, man. Joey Leilua put a couple of punches on some of us Cowboys as well. There's also the time where Stevie Walters, back in 1997 during the Super League, he defected to North Queensland, and there was blood gushing from his forehead. He travelled to Canberra as well, I think a year later, and started biffing on with, I forget who the Raiders player was, but I just think that whilst I did say before South Sydney and Cowboys is a sort of a friendly competition that seemed to bring the best out of one another, I think that this is the better of the two, better of the two when I talk about and insinuate friendly competition. These games, man, sometimes between Cowboys and Raiders are absolutely friggin' wild, man. And I'd have them inside the top 10 for sure. And let's move on to the next one. At number 9, in my opinion, the Newcastle Knights. Now, in 2004, the North Queensland Cowboys travelled to Energy Australia Stadium, as it was known back then, and they got the Golden Point extra time win. And that win sort of put them into the top 8 and really kept their head above water so far as their top 8 aspirations go. As you guys can see there, their head-to-head record is 22-20. So it is close. It is competitive. And it would take until the year 2000, round 16, for the first away team to win in this fixture. And of course, it was the Newcastle Knights that won up in Townsville. However, there is another game that happened in the 90s that I want to tell you guys about. And this game happened in round number 7, I think it was. I might need correcting. I might correct myself. But the game featured the Newcastle Knights and the Cowboys up at Townsville, and the Knights were undefeated at that stage. And obviously, in the early stages of 1998, the Cowboys were just regarded as the wooden spoon favourites. And what happened that night, they beat the North Queensland Cowboys, defeated Newcastle Knights, the premiers from 1997. And it's not like they were without their stars, the Newcastle Knights. Bobby O'Davis and the Johns brothers, they were playing in this game. And so this win to pip the premiers up there in Townsville in the early stages of the season and to beat Newcastle Knights, or the Newcastle Knights suffered their first loss at the hands of the Cowboys in season 1998. was a big deal at the time. No, I don't remember it, but going through the history books, it would have been a very big deal for the Townsville folk to see their team beat the Premiers from the year prior and be that team to say we were the first team to beat them in 1998 in their Premiership title defence year. And I was saying just before in 2006 or in the mid-2000s, Channel 9, man, they tried very hard to make this game the next big thing. If you recall, in 2006, there was a classic Easter Sunday game that featured these two sides. And for 4 or 5 years there, I'd say that it was a fixture that Channel 9 wanted you all to accept. And it worked for a time, didn't it? These two sides were very competitive between the mid-2000s to early 2010s. But since then, things have dropped off. And yeah, there have been some good encounters. But I mean, there was that game in 2020 down at McDonald Jones Stadium where I think the final scoreline was 12-0. And I think it was one of the worst games of footy I've ever seen. But just I put them up so high, the Newcastle Knights, against us for the reason that the mid-2000s, it was really pushed down our throat, and the narrative was pushed that Knights and Cowboys, it could be anything. It could be all time. But no, it's not a rivalry, and it never will be as well. But just for a short time there was just a little bit of spice between these two sides. And I just want to go, hey, I've got Mr. Zaya, the Aussie. G'day, bro. Hey, bro. And I've got Mr. Dan Sexton. I'm doing well, man. I hope you're doing well. Thank you very much for tuning in, dude. And I've just got Miss Jacqueline Dixon. I have seen the Cowboys play. I would love to go to Cairns and see the Cowboys play. I think, personally, Cowboys should play a game, one game every year up in Cairns. That's just my opinion, just to take a game a little bit more regional. I mean, it is North Queensland. Why does it have to be South Sydney that has to be the team? I very much prefer, or I would very much like to see them be the team that represents Cairns, and they do. But once a year, take a game up to Cairns, North Queensland. I'm telling you, I think it'll work a friggin' treat just quietly. So let's move into the top 8, and I think this next call is going to divide a lot of people, and I'm kind of terrified of talking about it at the same time too. My number 8 slot for best hate, it's hard to sort of categorize and describe, but I'd say in my top 8 of Cowboys' biggest heated feuds against, or biggest rivals, I'm going to say this team, the Melbourne Storm. Hear me out. Now, I know that the record looks like this. That's friggin' dreadful. One more time. Head-to-head record is 32-10 in favor of the Melbourne Storm, and the Cowboys haven't beaten the Melbourne Storm since the 2015 preliminary final. I know. I friggin' know. But the finals record is 2 apiece. There is grand final history between Cowboys and Storm, and I put that way above all the other aforementioned teams as well, man. And here's a stat as well that I couldn't believe when I saw it earlier today. In round 2 of 2001, North Queensland's first ever win against the Melbourne Storm came when they played at Etihad Stadium. I had no idea the Cowboys had laced their boots on Etihad Stadium, and then they walked away with a win, 32-28. I couldn't believe it. But yeah, the reason why I have the Melbourne Storm in my top 8, so far as heated feuds go for the Cowboys, man, is there's that finals history. There's the bit of spice that happened in round 4 of 2015. It was that game that kick-started North Queensland's dream run, undefeated run of 11 in a row as well. And there's always been a bit of feeling, not from my end, but there's always been a bit of talk and feeling that Billy Slater should have remained in Townsville because he is a North Queenslander, and he should have played for the North Queensland Cowboys as well. And I just want that win. I just want that friggin' win to come this season. I want to beat them, and that's why I have them in the top 8. It's a delicate decision wherever you put the Melbourne Storm, man. But I would have them just on the halfway line. And yeah, dude, this year might be no, not might. Miss Dixon, it is going to be different. They're going to beat the Melbourne Storm for the first time since 2015. I'm telling you. I'm friggin' telling you. I've emailed a couple of Cowboys as well. They haven't emailed me back, but I'm telling you, it's going to happen this season. And coming in at number 7 are the Sydney Roosters. The Sydney Roosters have I was unbeknownst to it, but the head-to-head record against us is pretty good. 27-12 in favour of the Sydney Roosters. And when you look back on the history outside of finals, which the finals record stands at 1-2, the contests between the Roosters and the Cowboys are always 13 plus, usually 13 plus, until they meet in finals and play some of the best finals that we've ever seen. And then, yeah, the 2004 preliminary final, that was a heated contest, and the boys got up the year later and smashed them in the year 2005 up there at Dairy Farmers Stadium. And there's just always just been a superiority complex, I guess. I guess that's the right term to use when I'm describing myself talking about the Sydney Roosters. There's not ever been, besides the 2 finals, there's never been a standout regular season game where you go, wow, that was a classic. That's something that was amazing. No, there's never been anything like that, because on average, it's usually been a 13 plus points victory either way. But I don't know, man. It's not, and I don't want to use the excuse that Roosters are just a very unlikable team, unless if you're barracking for the Roosters. No, it's not. It's just, it seems like whenever Cowboys and Roosters face each other, they usually, turn it up a little bit more than what they usually do with other teams that I've spoken about over the past half an hour or so. So I'd have West. Oh man, I'd put Easts in at number 7. I've just given away what my number 6 is going to be when I said Wests. Number 6 is going to be the West Tigers. I'd put them up there. There's grand final history. There's qualifying final history from 2005, and the overall record is 23-17 in favor of the West Tigers. And this is high because there have been some pretty famous things that have happened. So you had the 2005 grand final, and then 2006 you had the grand final rematch, and that obviously garnered interest and garnered a lot of hype as well. And then in 2007, in round 4, I think it was, Cowboys and Tigers played a famous game. Cowboys would win 25-24 by the magical boot of Matty Bowen. But what happened in that game in 2007, Liam Fulton and Bryce Gibbs put Luke O'Donnell in a dangerous situation, and it was known as the wishbone tackle, where one made sure that one of Luke O'Donnell's legs was stationary on the ground, and the other one lifted the leg up and sort of pulled it like a bloody wishbone or as a chicken bone, as it were, sort of thing. And that kept Luke O'Donnell out for a year. That ruined his season. And he even missed round 1, I think it was, off the top of my head, to come back in 2008. And then if you go on YouTube, and again, I can't show this too many clips for the NRL because I don't want to get done for copyright too badly. But in the 2008 rematch of that game, Luke O'Donnell played against the West Tigers, and in a tackle where he took up the ball, he was trying to score a try. Liam Fulton, who was partly responsible for the wishbone tackle, where his hamstring got ripped right off of the bone, Luke O'Donnell remembered that. And while he was on the ground wrestling with him to get back up onto his feet, Luke O'Donnell just sort of glided the old forearm elbow into Bryce Gibbs or Liam Fulton. And so he remembered that. 1 year later, and this is the most famous biff between Tigers and Cowboys, and there's no need to show it as well, but the Robbie Farah, Anthony Watts smash up at Leichhardt Oval, where Anthony Watts was a cheeky old bugger he even planted one. He was the one that planted one on Robbie Farah first in a midfield scrum. And as the story goes, rewatching Robbie Farah retell the story, Robbie Farah said, "No way, you're getting away with that." And then famously, you'll never forget it, man. Robbie Farah just laying the uppercuts into Anthony Watts, man. And since then, there was a famous win for the Cowboys that came just last year. They beat West Tigers for the first time at Leichhardt Oval since the year 2000. Lucky enough, I was there too. But besides that, yeah, there have been some other close games as well. But with grand final history and that sort of 5-year stretch where it was always anticipated, there was always feeling, I would definitely have the West Tigers sitting pretty up there in the number 6 position for sure, man. So West Tigers, I'd have them in at number 6. And so we're going to move now into the top 5 most heated feuds that the Cowboys have at the moment. And coming in at number 5, for me, in my opinion, are the Parramatta Eels. The Parramatta Eels and the Cowboys' overall head-to-head record stands at 22-20 in favour of the Eels, so it's still close and it is competitive. And that includes the finals record, where, amazingly enough, the Cowboys have won 2 in a row against them. And I would say one of the more famous regular season games that have happened between these two sides came in the same year. I'm pretty sure it was anyway, in 2011, where Cowboys and Eels faced each other down there at the old Pertex Stadium in round 3, and it was the most watched game at the time in Fox Sports history, and it would remain that way for a few seasons as well. And it was amazing because the Cowboys were coming off of a dreadful year in 2010, and they even lost a game. I think it was round 1 in 2011, but they got back-to-back, but they won in round 2 against Brisbane, and they were or something to that nature. And for some reason, the interest was just sky high in this game. And then about 8 weeks later, in the same year, Cowboys and Eels played a great game of footy, man. The final score was 40 points to 26 up there at Townsville, man. And it was a rip-roaring contest. And obviously, the finals history in 2005, they would beat Parramatta to make the grand final. And Parramatta fans were just in shock, man. And in 2017, they would face each other again at ANZ Stadium on a Saturday night. And there was feeling in that game, man. And there's always just been tension hidden under the rug. And I know West Tigers and Cowboys have that grand final history, but it just seems that Eels and Cowboys, there's barely even mutual respect for one another, I would say. And I would have Parramatta Eels in at number 5 on the list for sure, man. And so I'll move into the next reveal now, and that is the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. Suffice to say, they had to be somewhere in my top 5. The head-to-head record stands at 22-17 in favour of the Bulldogs. They were Cowboys' first ever opponent, and they were Cowboys' first ever opponent in the Cowboys' first ever finals game as well. And they pipped them in 2004 in that qualifying final. And then they played one of the greatest finals games I've ever seen. I know I keep saying it on this channel. I wax lyrical about it all the time whenever I get the chance. And you should all go out and watch the game between the Bulldogs and the Cowboys in the 2007 qualifying final. It is an amazing game. And as I said in a previous video as well, in 2007, that was the year of the Bulldogs and Cowboys, in my opinion. I know that Manly and Melbourne, they were the Ducks nuts. But in 2007, they played a trilogy of games that entertained more than any other in that year. I think off the top, I was only 16, 17 at the time. But in that year, 2007, Bulldogs and Cowboys, man, that was the main event. That was the year I was hosting people to come over, and people just lose their minds, man. last year, you had the Jack Etherington high tackle as well that got him sent off. That was done on Valentine Holmes as well. And it's just hard to go past the fact that Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs are the Cowboys' first ever opponent in the National Rugby League. So I would have them in the top 4, but I think the next 3, I think there's hate. I think there's a fair bit of hate in the next 3. And coming in at number 3, the Manly Sea Eagles. The overall record between the two sides stands at 20-13, and the finals record, and this plays a huge factor into why they're high up on the list. It's 3-0 in favour of the Manly Sea Eagles. And just before I go on, I just wanted to go back into the chat. Looking forward to seeing all the yes, for sure. I cannot wait to see a couple of the new players go around, like Griffin Neame, for example, in 2022. And Rugby League Roundup is joining us. Thank you so much. No, you're right, dude. You're right. Better late than never, bro. You've done your homework now. Now crack open a beer or a cheeky old Sprite or a Coke, as it were. And it's Bosky Para for sure, bro. So, yeah, I have Manly Sea Eagles up in 3rd spot because there is controversy 8 times out of 10 whenever we take on the Manly Sea Eagles. If you recall, in 2014, the two sides played a game up in Gosford, and the referees dudded us in that game. The final scoreline was 26-21 in favour of the Manly Sea Eagles, but the finals history between these two sides is a huge reason why the Manly Sea Eagles are high up on this heated opponent list. You've got the game in 2007 where the Cowboys and Sea Eagles played a pretty good first half of preliminary final football. And then for some reason or other, Manly Sea Eagles just said, nah, we've been hiding our best from yous all half, and we're about to kick your ass. And they did. They came out breathing fire in that second half. And then in 2011, the Cowboys scored the first try. I think they even took an 8-0 lead, or maybe it was 8-6. But in any event, they took a lead in it halftime in that week 1 final against the Sea Eagles. And then once again, Manly came out in that second half, but did even more damage to us this time around. I think the final scoreline was something like 42 points to 8 or something like that. And then 1 year later, we had to take them on again. It was like, oh, man, the Grim Reaper, fair dinkum Manly. Why? Why friggin' Manly again? And this time, the hand of foreign, that has always stuck in the craw of every Cowboys fan. They were in that game up to their ears, and there was a hand of foreign call, and then there was this other call that was a 50-50 that didn't go our way. But this, the call to allow that try to Jamie Lyon, I think it was, that was a 98 to 2% call that did not go the way of the North Queensland Cowboys. It was devastating, and since then, Manly and Cowboys, they've played really good games. The Cowboys have gone down to Brookvale and even beaten them quite handsomely as well over the past couple of seasons. But I mean, last year, as I said on the Rugby League Breakdown podcast, which you can see weekly on a Wednesday night, man, Manly Sea Eagles made bitches out of the Cowboys last year in season 2021. I personally, I don't mind Manly, but so far as the history goes between the two sides, man, I place them in at number 3. We usually don't like each other. And speaking of not liking each other, my number 2 spot is the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks head-to-head record stands at 38-14. I think that is a crazy record, considering how close the games have been over recent seasons. I did not think that the record would be that lopsided. And the finals record is 2 apiece. If I were to say a New South Wales team would be our rival, I would have to select the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks, man. Cowboys and Sharks, before they played their first ever game against each other in a final series, were playing classics, close encounters before they took on each other inside semi-final football, man. And I mean, you think about the 7-tackle try that happened in 2013, the 2016 preliminary final, the 2015 semi, and then the 2017 Golden Point extra time week 1 elimination final, man. If there's one side that I would say would be our rival from New South Wales, it would have to be the Cronulla Sharks, man. There's just so much controversy. I mean, there was controversy last year where a lot of people think Aidan Tolman took a dive, and it's hard to argue against, isn't it? When Reece Robson went as low as a rugby league player can go in trying to tackle someone. The Cowboys and Sharks is my number 2 pick as Cowboys' most heated rivals for sure, man. I always look forward to whenever Cowboys and Sharks go head to head, because you just don't freaking know what's going to happen. And as I said at the start of the show, I don't speak on behalf of all of North Queensland. This is just my personal opinion, but my opinion would not be worth a bugger if I did not have the Brisbane Broncos up at number 1. I am pretty sure if I didn't have Brisbane up at number 1, I'd be put onto the catapult and fired into the sun. The head-to-head record still stays way in place of the Brisbane Broncos, 36-18. You've got 2 draws in there as well. But the finals record goes towards the North Queensland Cowboys, 4-1. And I'll just quickly deep dive back into the chat as well. Just quickly, and Jacqueline Dixon, favorite player is Kyle Felt, and yes, this conversation here. So glad Jason Talmala got vaxxed. That's a conversation I need to save for another time. So watch this space. And look, there you go. You bring up the Sharks. I mean, Mr. Rugby League Roundup is a Dragons fan, so by rights he dislikes Cronulla a lot. But everyone hates the Sharks. They're bloody grubs. Yes, for sure. Sharks are the biggest grubs. And what we got here electrically, any teams that could become future rivals for the Cowboys. If the Gold Coast Titans and Cowboys turn it on and decide to bring out the barbed wire whenever they take on each other from now on, potentially. But I would say the Sharks and the Brisbane Broncos are our rivals. The rivalry between the Brisbane Broncos and North Queensland is elite. Let's get back on track here. As Rugby League Roundup says, Broncos Cowboys is the best Queensland rivalry and some people's top 5 rivals. I think it's the 3rd best rivalry in all of the NRL. And to reveal my top 3, I'd say Easts and Souths would be the best rivalry in the NRL, and I'd say Parramatta and Canterbury would be number 2. But I personally believe that Brisbane and North Queensland is the 3rd best rivalry in the NRL. And as a Cowboys fan, man, it's fucking cool to say, excuse my French. And yeah, look, 2015 is the benchmark for sure, man. But it started way back in their first ever game, man, to be brutally honest with you. And there was a draw in the Super League year in 1997. In 1999, there was another draw. And yeah, it took North Queensland 9 years to get their first ever win against the Brisbane Broncos, man. But yeah, it was definitely well worth the wait, man, because the scenes up there in Townsville on that night was insane. And then obviously that golden period from 2015 to 2017, I'd suggest, it just took the NRL universe, the rugby league universe, by storm. And National Sports Loaded, you're in the chat. Hey, man. Rugby League Roundup up. Yeah, their fans always throw bottles at home games. I know some story. Oh, dude, the Cronulla Sharks, bro. For sure, man. Okay, that's well, there you go. And Sports Loaded again, bro, they're going to ban fans for throwing bottles, which it should have. I think that rule should have been in place since the 1980s. I'd imagine, guys. But again, my biggest rival, the Cowboys' biggest ever rival, forevermore, man, will be the Brisbane Broncos. There's just no doubt about it. It's the third best rivalry in the NRL, maybe in all of rugby league. So that's my list, and I'll just bring it up one more time, just as I'm going off, guys. Brisbane Broncos, Cronulla, and Manly, they are my top three. South Sydney, Gold Coast, and Warriors are my bottom three as far as heat between clubs goes. I would be fascinated to hear what your thoughts are. Who do you rate at the very bottom of the Cowboys rival list? Who do you rate at the very top of the list? Because I know there was somebody that suggested that the Broncos weren't number one for North Queensland, and you're entitled to your opinion. But and it's just fascinating to hear other people's suggestions and opinions on the matter. And just before I go, Sharks fans are crazy. There's a story to tell there, but I'll tell it another time. And I just like Canterbury fans a bit more than the Sharks fans. Well, Canterbury fans bring out the drum and bass sometimes, don't they? And Miss nice live feed, bro. Thank you very much, Jacqueline. Thank you very much for sticking around the entire show. Thank you very much for your support. It really means a lot. And rugby league roundup, in my opinion, it's third Bronx Cowboys. I have Dragons in my top five. But hey, that's your opinion, man, and I'd love to hear it either here in the chat or sometime down the future. And can't wait for future discussions. And the rugby league season is only a month away, less than a month away. So expect a truckload of more Cowboys content. It's all coming. Cannot wait. Thank you so much for tuning in and for supporting the channel once more. Ladies and gentlemen, again, please leave your opinion down in the comments section, and I'll reply to them post haste. And just one last question from Electrical Dust. Who has the best fans in the NRL besides the Cowboys, in my opinion? Well, strike me pink, mate. You've kept me. Oh, gee whiz, you've caught me off guard there, haven't you? Who's got the best fans? Yeah, it's not the Canberra Raiders. They're pretty known for being parochial. I would look biasly, I'd say North Queensland, but I'd say the best fans in rugby league, mate. I'd have to say maybe, I'd have to think about it at the moment. Off the top of my head, I'll say South Sydney. I'll say South Sydney have the best fans in the rugby league. They're not overly boisterous unless if things are not going their way on Easter Friday, Good Friday in 2015. CJ, if you're watching, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. As Jason Reader here says, man, and mate, you've been in the chat since the start of the show, man. Thank you so much for your support as well. Guys, I'm out of here close to an hour. Thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Adios, everyone.